Mick Rourke had one rule: never miss a delivery. He'd been on the road for nearly 27 hours, navigating through the harsh desert of Nevada. The weight of the load, a shipment of time-sensitive pharmaceutical supplies, was on his shoulders. He had to get it to the Jefferson City warehouse by dawn. If he failed, the penalties would be steep. The night was thick, and the only light was the steady glow of his headlights, cutting through the deep desert fog that had rolled in as if out of nowhere. Suddenly, the GPS blinked out. It was a common issue, but this time, the map on the screen glitched. There was no signal, nothing but static. He cursed under his breath, swiping at the screen. He looked at the road ahead and saw only a narrow, dark strip. A faded sign appeared in the dim light. Exit 13, fuel and food, last stop. Mick frowned. He didn't remember passing any other exits. It was almost as if the road had pulled him in. But with no other choice, and his fuel gauge dipping dangerously low, Mick decided to take the exit. The truck rumbled down the exit, and the fog thickened. His headlights barely cut through it. At the end of the winding road, a dilapidated gas station loomed like a ghost from a forgotten era. The neon sign flickered erratically. Last stop. Mick parked his truck and stepped out into the cold, moist air. The ground was slick with rain, but the station felt frozen in time. The gas pumps were old, rusted, and barely working. Not a soul in sight. He walked up to the door, the hinges squeaking as he pulled it open. Inside was eerily quiet. The air smelled like dust and old paper. Shelves full of expired snacks lined the walls. The radio was playing an old jazz tune, static fuzzing through the speakers. Mick approached the counter and was greeted by a pale, thin man with a stiff smile. "You need something?" The man's voice was smooth, unnervingly calm. "Just some gas," Mick replied, his unease growing. The man never moved, his eyes never blinking. Mick asked for the bathroom, and the clerk pointed to a door behind him without speaking. Mick shook it off. The weirdness was just the isolation of the desert, he thought. With a full tank, Mick decided to grab a bite before continuing his drive. The clerk handed him a strange slip of paper. "Come around back. Got a special meal tonight." Mick, weary and hungry, accepted, stepping around the back of the station where he found a small, run-down diner. A red neon sign flickered above. Hollow Diner. Inside, the place was empty. The booths were full, but the people sitting there weren't moving. Not a single person blinked. They were like statues, their eyes wide and glazed, staring into nothing. Mick slid into a booth and waited. Moments later, a woman appeared. Pale, long black hair, dark eyes that almost seemed too deep. Without a word, she set down a plate in front of him. A burger. But something felt off. He stared at the patty. It looked wrong, like it wasn't fully cooked. He took a bite. Something hard jabbed into his teeth. Mick winced and spit it out. It was a human tooth. Before he could scream, the woman's voice broke the silence. "You're not leaving, Mick. Not alive." Mick quickly stood, his heart pounding. He rushed out of the diner and ran to his truck, desperate to get away. But as he reached the road, the familiar highway had vanished. In its place was a toll booth, sitting in the middle of the fog. A red light flashed from the booth. Mick felt his body freeze, his truck refusing to budge forward. Something heavy gripped the brakes. A voice crackled through a speaker above. "Pay the toll." "One soul, not yours. Choose wisely." The light turned green, but Mick didn't move. He didn't understand. One soul. He stepped out of the truck, but the booth operator was nowhere in sight. The road stretched on, as if daring him to cross. But something stopped him. A cold shiver crawled down his spine. The engine roared back to life on its own, and he was pulled forward, unable to stop. Mick's eyes scanned the road as he sped forward, trying to shake off the ominous feeling that had clung to him since the gas station. But as the fog grew thicker, he saw a figure on the side of the road. An old man hunched and shuffling, his thumb raised for a ride. Mick's instinct screamed to keep going, but something about the man felt wrong. The rig swerved on its own, pulling toward him. Before Mick could protest, the man climbed into the cab. No words passed between them. The old man's face was pale, his eyes too wide, black as night. "I paid the toll last time," the old man whispered, his voice like gravel. "Now it's your turn." Mick wasn't sure how long he'd been driving. The landscape was the same, roads winding in impossible directions. He was going in circles. The watch on his wrist had stopped ticking, and the truck's dashboard blinked with strange, jumbled numbers. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was trapped. The radio crackled to life with a voice he recognized, his own voice. "Exit 13, last stop. You never leave." Mick's breath caught in his throat. His own voice had come from nowhere. Frantic, Mick stopped the truck and climbed into the trailer. What he saw made his blood run cold. His cargo of pharmaceutical supplies was gone. In their place were wooden crates, old and battered. He cracked one open. Inside was a child's coffin, freshly made and stained with the scent of decay. A small note was taped to it. "Deliver to Hollow Pines Cemetery before midnight." By midnight, Mick arrived at a crumbling cemetery that wasn't on any map. The gate was broken, the tombstones half sunk into the ground. The fog swallowed the graveyard whole. He opened the coffin expecting the worst, but the child inside was gone. The earth trembled beneath his feet. Out of the grave, a figure slowly emerged. A child, smiling with eyes that gleamed with blood-red fury. "Let's go, Daddy." The truck started moving on its own. The engine roared as if possessed. Mick couldn't control it. The child was sitting beside him, smiling with an impossible grin. The road stretched on forever. Endless, winding, fog-covered paths. No matter how many times Mick checked his mirrors, he couldn't escape the faces of the dead behind him. They'd been following him all along. The souls of those who had come before, trapped in an endless loop of delivery, just like him. Every now and then, truckers report seeing a rig on the road, an eerie Kenworth with license plate 13-D-LVRY. And if they stop, if they try to help the driver, they never come back. Some say Mick's face is now one of those grinning souls in the fog, still stuck behind the wheel, delivering cargo to the last stop, never leaving. And if you see him on the road, know this: once you stop for Mick, you never leave. The last delivery of the night, the last stop you'll ever make, exit 13. It's not a road, it's a trap. Drive carefully out there, or better yet, don't stop. A long-haul trucker is hired for a high-paying midnight job. No questions asked. His cargo is a sealed, heavy container bound for a decommissioned asylum. But the deeper he drives into the night, the more he begins to realize something inside the container is very much alive and watching. Travis Tex Morgan, a seasoned long-haul trucker with nothing to lose, gets a mysterious offer from a shadowy logistics company. $15,000 cash, no paperwork, one-night haul. Pickup at midnight. Destination: Black Hollow Asylum, closed since 1984. He needs the money, bad. No questions asked, fine by him. But as he signs the handwritten contract, the dispatcher's last words chill him. Don't open the container, ever. At a dark, fog-shrouded depot, Tex backs his rig up to an unmarked, dented shipping container. It hums faintly. Metal bolts line the door like it's meant to hold something in, not keep thieves out. Two workers in hazmat suits silently secure it to the trailer. They don't make eye contact. One of them slips a note into Tex's pocket before vanishing into the fog. It simply says, "Turn back before mile marker 77." As Tex cruises down the empty back roads, the CB radio crackles, though he's not transmitting. A voice whispers his name over and over. He kills the radio. Then it comes back on, louder. Now it's a child's voice. "You're not supposed to hear us yet." Tex pulls over at a closed rest stop for a quick smoke. The fog is so thick he can barely see past his hood. From the back of the trailer, he hears 3 slow knocks. He circles around. The container is quiet. Just as he turns back to the cab, he sees it, a wet handprint on the trailer door. From the inside. He blows past mile marker 77 without realizing, until the temperature drops suddenly. The truck slows, not because of the brakes, but as if something is resisting him. Suddenly, the GPS reroutes on its own, recalculating to Black Hollow. When Tex glances at his rearview mirror, someone is in the passenger seat. A man, pale and soaking wet, with bleeding eyes. Tex slams on the brakes. The seat is empty again. But now the man is standing in the road ahead. Objects in the cab begin to move on their own. The air grows freezing. His coffee turns black as tar. The radio screams with overlapping voices, pleading, crying, screaming in agony. And from the container, sobbing, then laughter, then nothing. He finally arrives. The asylum gates creak open on their own. The building looms like a corpse on a hill. A pale man in a straitjacket greets him at the entrance. "We've been waiting," he says, even though the place has been abandoned for 40 years. He motions to the trailer. "You brought her back." Tex watches as they open the container. Inside is an iron coffin, chained, nailed shut, and covered in warning sigils. But they open it anyway. The moment the lid cracks, a shriek pierces the sky. Lights shatter. The earth trembles. Tex sees her, a girl with no eyes and a stitched mouth. Her body floats upward. Everyone screams. Then silence. When Tex wakes, it's morning. The asylum is gone. The trailer is empty. No sign of the coffin or the girl. But now he hears whispers constantly, sees her in reflections, smells her perfume. And every night at midnight, the CB crackles. One more delivery, Tex. One more trip to Black Hollow.